With all these rackets to choose from, how are we possibly going to narrow it down? I've done the work for you, and here is my top 5. So before we get into the list proper, I want to explain a little bit behind my process when it comes to deciding what makes a good tennis racket a good tennis racket. So first of all, it's how easy it is to use. So for me, if I can pick up a tennis racket and play with it basically straight away, that is a very, very good sign. And that's gonna help inform the list. And you'll see as we go through that a lot of my rackets fall into a kind of the middle range. I don't have anything particularly extreme on the power side. I don't have anything particularly extreme on the precision side. And I certainly don't have anything particularly extreme on the spin side. And this is just because these rackets require a very, very distinct play style, which I think maybe just undermines them slightly when it comes to a top 5. If it's designed for a specific player, it can't really be called the best tennis racket. So I'm looking for something that's an all-rounder, anybody can use, that is easy to pick up and play with. So in at number 5, we have the Prince Beast. Now, when we first reviewed this racket back last summer, myself and Joe, we got all kinds of feedback from people saying we were being a little bit too positive about this racket. It doesn't really make sense to me being too positive, because the Prince Beast is an absolutely glorious tennis racket to play with. You pick it up, you feel like you've been playing with it your entire life. This is definitely a power racket, but it is an easy to use, sort of middle of the road power racket. It's not insane in terms of how stiff it is. It's not insane of how much power you get out of the racket. It's just a really, really comfy, easy to use, what used to be called a tweener racket. Myself and Joe reviewed this back last summer, and we really enjoyed it. We were very, very positive, and I still am. The drawbacks are still the same. Don't like the name Beast. Don't like how it looks. If it was all black and called anything other than Beast, it might be higher on my list. But for now, I'm going to stick with it at number 5. At number 4, we have the Wilson Shift 99. Now again, it's a spin racket, but it's not a crazy spin racket. It's way tamer than the V-Core. It's way tamer than the Aero. And I think it looks really, really smart. When I first used it, it kind of weirdly felt much more maneuverable than expected. So it kind of plays like a thin-beamed speed racket almost, but it's just got that sort of heaviness, that weightiness that you get with a frame designed for spin. So if you're looking for a little bit of spin, but you want some power, a good all-rounder type racket that just looks really, really smart, really, really sleek, then the Wilson Shift 99 is not a bad place to go, which is why it is my number 4. At number 3, we have the Wilson Blade 1619. Now, we've gone past this sort of non-typical rackets for me. We've had the Beast and the Shift, which were a power and a spin frame, and now my top 3 are all quite similar. They're all thin-beamed speed control rackets, whatever you want to call them, and I love these rackets because they're so easy to use. They all feel very, very similar, so trying to separate them was a little bit difficult, but essentially you get plenty of power because you can throw it around so quickly. You get plenty of spin as long as they have an open racket string pattern, so I like a 1619 string pattern in my thin beam tennis rackets. So then trying to separate them is really just personal preference. Now, I want fun when I play tennis. I play tennis because I enjoy it, I want to have a good time, and a racket is part of that experience. That is why the Wilson Blade is at number 3, because it's just a bit too serious. I don't know why. It's got like energy imbued with it by the people at Wilson that the others don't quite have, but it just feels like maybe it's a bit too expensive, it's a bit too precious, it's a bit too well made. It almost feels like you need to be careful when you're using it. And that's not what I'm about. I like to just have a good time and throw my racket at the ball and see what happens. So a really, really nice racket, a lovely tennis racket, and it is still number 3. It's just not quite as fun as the 2 that are going to come next. At number 2, we have the brand new 4th generation Babolat Pure Strike 1619, and again the 1619 is really important here. And this is the 98 square inch version, not the Pure Strike 100. It is a hard decision to make, but essentially I think the 98 just feels a little bit better. So I was trying to think of an analogy that really sums it up. And essentially what I think it is that the Babolat Pure Strike was designed to be a 98 square inch racket, and then they made a 100 square inch version of it. And then you can tell that, I can feel the difference. It kind of feels like an edited, almost watered down version. So that's why I've gone for the 98 in the Pure Strike. Weirdly, my number one racket is back to 100 again, but it felt like it was designed to be 100. So it's kind of like when these brands start editing their rackets and creating slightly different versions, sometimes it doesn't quite feel as pure as the original was meant to be. For those of you who've watched our videos before, you'll know what's coming at number one. And especially when you see the comparison we did between this racket and the racket that is coming next, they are basically the same. It is really, really hard to separate them, partly cosmetically and partly just a little bit of feel. So the Pure Strike 1619 is a glorious racket to play with. It is so much fun. It's so easy to use. You can get it to do whatever you want. You want to have loads and loads of topspin, sit back, let the ball drop, brush right up it, you can do that. If you want to stand in and slam the ball flat and hard, you can do that as well. It's great for serving with, it's great for volleying with, it's perfect for coaching with. It's an absolutely all-round great tennis racket. It just doesn't feel quite as nice as what is coming next. All right, at number one, it is the Head Speed MP 2024. This is the perfect tennis racket. It is the perfect tennis racket for me, and I know everything there is to know about tennis, so therefore I can guarantee you it is the perfect tennis racket for you as well. There isn't a huge difference between this and the Babolat Pure Strike 1619. One of the major differences is obviously the head size. This is 100 square inch. The Babolat Pure Strike is 98. Those 2 extra square inches, maybe that makes all the difference, but there is something about this racket. It is absolutely brilliant to play with. You cannot go wrong with a Head Speed MP. You can do anything you want. You can play every single shot and have a great time doing it. I've been using the Speed now for the last 2 or 3 generations, last 2 or 3 versions. The Auxetics seem to have made a huge difference to the feel of this racket. The older ones weren't so great. Since they put Auxetic in, this is obviously the second version, this is Auxetic 2.0, so it's twice as good as the first one. It is really, really nice. It feels great, which is rare in these thin beamed rackets. Normally they can get a little bit harsh when you make contact, but this feels like a big, chunky, heavy frame. You can get as much spin as you can get with an aero or a V-core, but you also still get the maneuverability and the feel that you'd expect. So it's almost a combination of the other rackets. You get it feels beastly in terms of its power, it feels shifty in terms of its spin, and then it's kind of got the quality of the blade, the fun of the Pure Strike, but it's just all round. The Head Speed MP just seems to combine everything I want out of tennis into one perfect tennis racket. When it comes to stringing it, you want to probably go for a poly string fairly low, 48, 50. We're really enjoying Restring Zero at the moment. Obviously there's loads of Toraline strings which are great fun to use as well. Just something that enhances your enjoyment of the game. So you don't want to go start putting in Champion's Choice or anything too serious. It doesn't feel like it matches. It almost like this racket has a personality and the strings need to go with it. Bright pink, bright green, bright yellow. Do something that makes this racket even more fun, and you're going to be playing tennis with a smile on your face. And if you're smiling and you're happy, you're going to be playing better. And that's the whole point, right? We want to have a good time winning tennis matches. And the best way to do that, for me, is the Head Speed MP 2024. Thank you very much for watching. These are 3 rackets that just missed the cut. Maybe honourable mentions, definitely 6, 7 and 8. Like we said at the start, there are hundreds of tennis rackets to use. You've got different weights, different grip sizes, different string patterns, different strings, different tensions. It's going to be almost impossible to find the perfect racket for you. We say this all the time when people come into the shop with us, they want to try this and that. You're never, ever going to be 100% sure you have got the perfect tennis racket. So decide what you want roughly. When you get close and you're having a good time and you're playing well, that's the one for you. Stick with it. Chopping and changing all the time is just going to lead you down a very, very dark road. Those are my top 5. Obviously, Joe's have already been out, Josh's are coming soon. Thank you very much for watching. Please like, subscribe and share and all the things you do. Comments are always welcome, always appreciated. If you want more reviews of these rackets, they're already up. The ones we haven't done yet will be coming soon as well. All the best and enjoy your tennis.